Welcome in, Falcons fans. Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again with more Atlanta Falcons content. I know it's been a minute since I've done a Falcons video, but obviously after today's showing in Monday Night Football, I felt like it was needed to make this video and talk about a team that is right now that just don't look good. I'm about to say Hawks. I've done so much Hawks content recently. Falcons win tonight, 15-9, but I've said that this is the most unhappiest I've been after a win, I think, in a while. You go against probably the second worst, if not the worst team in the league, and you go to the wire with them. A game that you thoroughly probably should have won by multiple touchdowns, and you win on a game-saving interception by Jesse Bates. You had 3-4 turnovers, block punts, block field goals, and you still only won the game by 6. That's not good. That's not good at all. Kirk Cousins continues to look abysmal at quarterback. The questions, the fire gets hotter every time he plays because he is not quieting anybody. Raheem will probably go out and support him and say he is our guy. We believe in him. We believe we can get this right with him at the helm. When you have a top 10 pick sitting right behind him, probably ready to go if you needed him to, and potentially could provide a spark to this offense that they desperately need. You have all of that right now sitting in front of you. You are still in the race to win your division if Tampa Bay slips up, and you have a big game coming up in 2 weeks against the Commanders where that is your path to potentially get into the wild card if you win out but don't win the division. And right now, I don't feel confident. Right now, we are in a stretch of Falcons football where every week is going to be excruciating based off how they're playing at this moment because they're not playing good enough to handle any team. If you couldn't handle this Raiders team, this lowly Raiders team, you play the other worstest team in the league next week in the Giants. Right now, as far as I know, we're about to be in a close game next week against this team. And I said that obviously the Falcons are going to be favored to win that game. They should win that game. But is it going to come down to the wire? How is that game going to look? Because and the way they're playing, Giants may have a chance. They have injuries, but they may have a chance to win that game. And obviously, as a Falcons fan, you'd be pissed if that was the case. It shows just everything we've seen these last few weeks, the last month from Kirk, has just been all bad. I know, and the team, I think, it always happens with this Falcons team. They play kind of well and good in some spots, and then as the season goes on, they just start to it feels like all the elements, the phases of play start to diminish. They start to get worse, and you're just kind of like, what happened? Why did this get worse? Why did this get bad? And it's one of the things that people are going to ask. People are just not happy right now with the current state of Atlanta Falcons football, and it's for good reason. There's no reason to feel good about what you've seen from this team. You have every right to feel the way you have felt about this Falcons team. Because let me really smack here on Kirk Cousins for a second. So there's been a lot of breakdowns recently of Kirk Cousins' play. There's been a lot of opinions of Kirk Cousins' play about what's going on, what's happening, what is he healthy? Is he not just not comfortable? What he's not seeing it well? Is he's physically deteriorating? What's going on? And there were some interesting comments tonight on Monday Night Football. Them kind of saying that Kirk kind of saying, I don't know what to do to get out of this slump, which is a concerning comment. That your quarterback's kind of like, I don't know why I've been so bad. Like, that's weird. Either you're hurt or, I guess in a way, as an athlete, as they always say, it's hard for an athlete to admit that they're not what they used to be. And maybe that's what Kirk's going through right now, is he's not what he used to be. And the thing is, his body's kind of telling him that, but mentally he's struggling with it because it's like, I used to be able to do this, and now I can't at the level I want to. And now that's affecting his decision-making and affecting how he reads the field. Now, I also preference that and say that not all of this on Kirk. Zach Robinson could be better with his play calling at times. Absolutely. With some of the things he's done. Absolutely, Zach Robinson can be better. But I also think Zach Robinson's going through a bit of a place of, I'm trying to get this offense adjusted to where he's comfortable. And I think as an offensive coordinator, that's sometimes the worst thing, adjusting the offense to make your quarterback comfortable. Because it's not like, oh, he has these elite skills that I'm adjusting my offense to. That's fine. It's he's struggling, and so I have to adjust my offense to his struggles to hopefully get him out of his slump. And that's where you can see the offense really struggling. Kirk Cousins only threw the ball 17 times tonight. One touchdown, had another pick, sacked 3 times, and just almost had an interception on the last Falcons drive to potentially give the Raiders good field position. They got bailed out the previous 3-down set by a roughing the passer because he got hit in the head. That could have not been called, if we're just being honest. And the thing is in a situation like this, they called the game tonight like Kirk was a rookie quarterback. You got over 150, 60 yards rushing tonight. Your running game was there. So you had that. But at the same time, you basically have a quarterback who I said earlier in the game on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter, Bryce_2K. Because he's so immobile, if there's any type of pressure on Kirk, it seems like the play breaks down. Because Kirk then is kind of panicking a little bit because he's not mobile enough to kind of stand in there, move to the left, move to the right, step up, step back, whatever, and still know, okay, where are my receivers at? Look downfield. Where do I have a guy? And you see that in the way he plays. I mean, I basically said the offensive line has to be perfect for Kirk because he's not going to help them if they can't be perfect. They tried to do a couple of play action plays. Those get blown up. And I don't know what that's about. Apparently, Zach Robinson apparently said they can't block those. I don't know what that means. What do you like? Why can't you block play action passes? Like, that's weird to me. So it's one of those things where the offense is just not good. And Kirk's a big part of that. I mean, it could be physical. He could just be deteriorating. And Kirk's just not that guy anymore. And if that is the truth, and it's hitting him that fast that he is deteriorating, if you're Kirk Cousins, you got to consider retirement. You can't tell me you can play another year and if that's the way you're playing. There's no way someone's going to, somebody out there may sit there and say, I'm willing to give Kirk Cousins an opportunity to play for us. But if you're the Falcons, you cannot go into this offseason saying Kirk Cousins, if he continues to play this way and finishes the season the way he's playing, and tell me and tell the fan base and tell those guys in the locker room, he's the best chance for us to win next year. Of all the reports we're hearing about Penix balling in practice, and I've said multiple times, this offense is built for Michael Penix. It's not built for Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins can run the offense, like he did when we were talking about Kirktober. He ran the offense great. Outside of that man has not been able to run this offense well at all. He has just not seen the field well. It's just not. It's very weird. Hasn't played well. Doesn't see things well. Everything under the sun. And so the biggest issue that a lot of people see coming out of tonight, and I said this in a tweet with Raheem. Raheem supports his guys publicly, as a lot of coaches do, even through struggles. He will say, I believe in him. I believe they can fix it. I believe they can get better. Because sometimes there are players who can bounce back and they can get better. That definitely happens. That is definitely something that is possible. That is not something that is unreasonable. That is something that can happen. A player can bounce back from these types of performances and give you better performances, right? But the issue is you are in the midst of trying to survive, to make the playoffs. When you are trying to win, you have to put the best opportunities and the best players out there for you to win. You have a top 10 pick sitting behind a quarterback who is struggling and in a way has single-handedly cost you your NFC South lead and the reason why you may not make the postseason. He has a very big part in why that is. The defense has had their problems, absolutely. The defense has definitely had their issues. But Kirk Cousins, especially like the Chargers game, is going to be a game that haunts Falcons fans and still makes me upset because that is a game we should have won. Honestly, the way that game went, we should have blew out the Chargers. The way that the Buccaneers blew them out on Sunday is the same way we should have blew them out. But we couldn't because the difference is Baker threw touchdowns and Kirk threw interceptions. And that's been the difference. Not throwing a touchdown till tonight against the Raiders. For the first time in a month. It's obviously something that you're glad has ended, but at the same time makes you realize, man, this isn't good. And that was just because Drake ran a filthy route and got open. Outside of that, if he has to read it and just make the right decision, Kurt has struggled to do that. But going back to my point with Raheem, you're defending him and everything. But how can you tell the guys right now, I'm willing to go down with, because that is basically what Raheem Morris is doing right now. He is basically saying, I am willing to go down with Kirk Cousins and this season end up in flames instead of going to Michael Penix and just seeing, can he change the fortunes of this offense? Just giving him a shot. And the reason why that is, in my personal opinion, is because I believe the Falcons think if Penix comes in and he plays well, they will have to keep Penix in the starting lineup. And you may sit there and think, why is that a bad thing? Why? Because they invested all that money into Kirk. Because then if he ends up playing well, what do you do with Kirk Cousins? Because if you get rid of him, he will count $60 million against your cap. And now you're in cap hell, what you were trying to get out of from Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. So do you potentially have Kirk Cousins stay as a backup and you're paying him all that money? And I think the Falcons are trying desperately to not have to make that decision right now. They're going to wait till they have to get to the offseason so they can say, we can reevaluate everything. We can look at everything. We can look at ourselves. But they won't do it right now because they don't want to have that discussion right now. They don't want to have to face that decision right now. Because the offseason, if Penix doesn't play, we still have no idea if Penix can play technically. So you can still make a case for Cousins staying. If Penix comes in and he plays well, that pretty much kind of forces you to trade Kirk Cousins or cut him. And then the league knows that you have to trade Kirk Cousins or cut him. And so then you have no leverage because they know you have to get rid of Kirk Cousins. And so they're trying to keep whatever leverage they have. Because you heard the reports a few weeks ago. Kirk Cousins is basically playing to keep his job for next year, right? That is what we've heard. He is playing to keep his job for next season. Right now, if I'm in that front office and I'm Raheem and I'm the TJ Yates, it's no, he can't be. Because this Kirk Cousins is nowhere good enough. I believed when they signed Kirk and if he got healthy, I said the last time we saw Kirk, he was balling. He was hooping. He was balling for like 2.5 years, like a year and a half, basically. And so you're thinking, okay, if he can get healthy, Kirk, we get that Kirk back. All right, yeah, we're locked in. We are set. We are a playoff team. And for 1 month, you got that Kirk Cousins. Outside of that, you have not got anywhere close to that Kirk Cousins. And that has been one of the toughest realizations that I think the Falcons have had to make, is that we are not getting the guy we expected. I truly believe they wanted Kirk to play well for 2 years and then move off of him in the third year when he doesn't count that much against the cap, and then Penix becomes QB1. But now they're going to have to accelerate that process. Because, again, if Kirk Cousins struggles and the season ends on a bad note or they don't make the postseason, how can you look the fan base, how can you look your team, and how can you look Arthur Blank in the eyes and tell him Kirk Cousins gives us the best chance to win football games? Because it's not like you have a 7th round pick behind him or a journeyman quarterback. You don't have that behind Kirk Cousins. You have a top 10 pick who a lot of people think maybe could play right now in an offense that is designed for him. Why not give him a shot? If anything, this is the time. You're playing the Giants. Play him against the worst team in the league. If he looks bad against them, okay, go back to Kirk against Washington. You at least will have an excuse. If you because I said coming into this when they kept him at quarterback after last week, I said that they're hoping Kirk Cousins can rehab himself through these next two games against the Raiders and the Giants while they're playing bad teams. Because the perception is if he plays good against them, his confidence might come back. He might start seeing things better. And now going into that Commanders game, we're going to get a better version of Kirk Cousins. Well, you just played against one of the worst, if not the worst team in the league, and you cannot come out of the game feeling any better about that. To me, it looks like he looked worse than he did last week. Like, Chargers, terrible. Vikings looked better, but still not good. This week looked worse against a worser team. And that's why Falcons fans are fed up right now. That is exactly why Falcons fans are fed up with what's going on. And all the pressures on Raheem. There's a lot of discussions about Raheem Morris. Should he be fired? I'll give my quick take on that. My quick take on Raheem Morris is that I do not believe he should be fired because I look at continuity. You have created this plan and this vision for this team. Abandoning that plan after a year, especially after just firing Arthur Smith. If any NFL coach is looking at jobs, they are going to go into the Falcons situation and think, am I on a 1 year and done situation? Is it that? Do I have any job security even though I'm a new head coach? Because I always say this. Teams that are rebuilding usually should give their coach 3 to maybe 4 years. Teams that are win now usually should give their coach at least 2 years. Because that means you're coming into a situation where you are expected to be good. So 2 years max. So I think Raheem should get that second year to be able to attempt to fix things. Because maybe he has to look himself in the mirror and say, I got to make some changes to the coaching staff. I got to make some changes to the roster. And we got to be realistic about what we have and what we need in solving that problem, right? And that's why I don't think you should. Just because if you're bringing a new coach, you're restarting everything again, new schemes, new systems. You're going right back through now whatever plan for Penix you had. Now the new coach you hire has to have a plan for Penix, and you have to hope the plan works for Penix. And like I said, I think I really do want to see Michael Penix in the Zach Robinson offense and see what that looks like. And I don't know, whoever you bring in, there's no guarantee you're going to get the best coach in this cycle. If you get the fifth best coach in the cycle, I mean, what is that going to look like? Because the last thing you want to do is not stunt the growth of Penix and like I said, you've had 3 defensive coordinators now in 3 years. So the defense can't get any type of continuity within the scheme because they keep changing defensive coordinators. And listen, I've been honest. I said if they do make a big change to the coaching staff, Jimmy Lake's the first person that you have to look at and say, we may have to move on from him. And I would immediately get on the phone with Steve Wilkes and say, hey, come on, we need you. That we don't need to play about this. We're serious about winning. But that's just me. Terry, there's a lot of stuff against Terry. And to me, if you want Terry fired, that's fine. I just don't think you can fire Terry without firing Raheem. But if you want to keep Raheem, you got to keep Terry. Because again, if Raheem's on a 1 year rental, then at that point, why are you bringing a new GM to work with him? Like, you see what I'm saying? There's just no continuity there, and that's not a good model in the NFL. Teams and organizations and coaches pay attention to that, and if you tell them we're going to have a very unstable model, you're going to have a hard time getting the best coaches. And before anybody brings up Bill Belichick, remember one thing: the league didn't want him again this year. The league didn't want him. You can't say that the league wanted him and the Falcons passed up on a hot commodity. They didn't. He's in college now. So, but that's just me. But overall, man, coming out of this Monday Night Football game, it's really hard to feel any bit good about it. Because like I said, running game, great. Bijan, great. Tyler, great. Mooney hasn't done anything, it feels like, outside of the Minnesota game. because the offense is like literally, we've been so focused on killing Kyle Pitts on social that we forget Mooney really hasn't had a great game outside of Minnesota. London's been okay. And the passing game has just been down across the board. And the reason why is Kirk Cousins. None of those guys can be the great players that we've seen them be this year if Kirk is not playing well. So if we have to keep that in mind when evaluating those guys. Well, if Kirk's not playing well, what should I honestly expect from my receivers? So, listen, Minnesota game, that's fair. Pitts dropped some passes. Okay. He could be better, for sure. 100%. But at the same time, you also saw when Kirk was balling, Pitts was balling. You think it's a coincidence that Kirk sucks, now Pitts hasn't done anything. And even tonight, he's basically getting used on like 5-6 yard outs and ins. It's like, what? Like, you're not doing anything with him. So the offense has a lot of issues that they got to fix, man. They got to fix. And defensively, I'm glad that we're able to get after the passer now. I am fully convinced that Jimmy Lake had told them to pass rush a certain way, and it was the most worstest decision ever. Completely made everybody regress. And then after that bye week, they said, we're not doing that anymore. And all of a sudden, D'Angelo Malone, 2 sacks. Arnold Ebiketie getting after it. Kadavius Street. Like, our D-line looks so much better now after the bye week. Crazy. I truly believe that Jimmy Lake's scheme has regressed every player on this defense. And then after the bye week, they changed some of the stuff they did. Now you see Kate Nellis playing better. You're seeing the D-line play better. A.J. Terrell's been really good. Now, sadly, Mike Hughes and Robert Alford D hasn't played that great. Now, D had a good game tonight, but, Vikings game was not a good game for him. Mike Hughes got cooked a couple of times. Obviously Minnesota's a very tough matchup for corners, but that's just the truth. People say Justin Simmons is cooking, and I believe this to myself. I just think they're not using Justin Simmons correctly, and it's making him look bad because there are so many situations where just coaching can really ruin a player. And I think people sometimes just forget about that. They just think the players suck. Because I just feel like they're not using Justin Simmons the way he's been used. Like, if you watch Justin Simmons' Denver tape and you watch Falcons tape, they're not using him the same way. And you're seeing a worse version of him. So I think that's very reflective on coaching, which is why I mentioned Jimmy Lake being the guy who may need to get out. And you need to revert. And I hate the fact that we have to go through another defensive coordinator, but that may be what you need to do, right? But yeah, so that's just my 2 cents right now on what the Falcons are doing. It's just not great. And changes have to be made if this ends up being a free fall. Because now my question is, okay, if the Falcons go 10-7, right? They went out, but they don't make the postseason. How do we view this year? Because we haven't had a winning season, since 2017? So you had your first winning season since 2017. But I feel like a lot of us are going to feel like this is the worst winning season we've ever had, if that makes sense. Because of the fact that we had the division in our hands, multiple game lead, easily had a path to the postseason, and we choked it away. And so it's like, even if we finish with a good record, it's like, I can't feel great about the team, And there's just a lot of questions that are going to have to be asked. You're going to have to revamp your linebacking core because Troy Ellis, IR, it sucks. He showed flashes when he's played, but he can't stay healthy. Nate Landman clearly does not look like the same player after that groin injury. He may be deteriorating already because, sometimes linebackers can go downhill like that. Ask Deion Jones. You got to revamp that part of your team. You got to revamp the secondary a little bit. You're going to have to relook at the cornerback 2 and 3 spots. You're going to have to look at, if Simmons is not a part of your plans, getting another free safety. You got to look at Young Wei Koo. He's had one of his worst seasons as a Falcon. He went 2 or 3 tonight, missed that last one. People want him cut. People are saying you had 2 55-yard field goals that you didn't trust him with. If he's hurt, put him on IR. And if he can't kick it, then cut him. That's where we are right now in the state of the Atlanta Falcons. Right now, it just feels like, oh my God, what is about to happen? Because you do not come out of this game feeling confident at all about what you saw tonight. Not at all. So that's just my 2 cents. Obviously, guys, leave your comments down below what you think about the performance tonight, what you think about what we saw from the Falcons. Just anything that you want to say. I want to hear you guys. I want to hear what you guys got to say. Hey, if you need to let some frustrations out, man, let some frustrations out. Some other people might see in the comments say, let my frustrations out with you, brother. So that's just me right now, bro. But if you did enjoy this episode, definitely subscribe to the channel. Definitely like the video. So then maybe for me, I'm like, I'll get out more Falcons content. I mean, I've done some live streams pretty much, but, try to make more of an effort because I've really been locking in on Hawks coverage recently. So I've been really focused on that. But obviously Falcons I still cover, keep up with, watch all the games, live tweet, everything. So I'm very much locked in knowing what's going on. Big shout out to special teams tonight. MVPs of the game. Cordell Hodge, lifetime contract. He's been honestly the Falcons MVP this entire year. So that's just me. But appreciate you guys. Follow me on Twitter, Bryce_2K. It's your boy Bryce Lewis. See you next time.